What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to introduce you all to lifelong UAP and NHI phenomenon experiencer, abuse survivor, whistleblower, targeted individual, empath, content creator, and another brave warrior stepping up to shine a light on the darkness, Mack, aka Parsi X. Mack, who we will be calling Parsi X as well, has been an experiencer of the phenomena for his entire life, starting with a close encounter he experienced with his twin brother when they were both children at the tender age of 11, living in India. Mack and his twin brother were fortunate to be the sons of a loving mother who brilliantly had them document their individual experiences instead of immediately discrediting them or chalking up their allegations to being a figment of their childlike imaginations, even though she had her doubts. Mack's experiences have continued throughout his life, with phenomena manifesting themselves as things like orbs, UAPs, and NHI that connect with him in intelligent ways that defy explanation and at times leave a lot more questions than answers. Mack's formative years also include being bullied in school, and eventually he fell captive to being prey to a deviant predator who abused him at the age of 23. Today will be the first time he has ever publicly shared this part of his testimony, and I ask you all to wrap Mack in a blanket of love and compassion, as you always do, as we talk about an extremely traumatic and devastating event that forever changed his life and left lasting scars of betrayal, pain, and trauma on his body, heart, mind, and soul. One of the reasons Mack has decided to speak out about these very vulnerable moments in his life is because he knows many other experiencers and survivors out there are suffering in silence, and that his story may help validate their experiences and give them hope and a voice. He hopes to encourage people who are suffering to keep going and to show that with consistent work and healing, that life can be beautiful and purposeful, even if the journey is difficult and at times imperfect. Mack has learned that the way you hand shame and trauma back isn't through internalizing the pain and stuffing it down, but by finding ways to out it through public disclosure. Whether this is telling a friend, a therapist, or strangers on the internet, Mack has become a living example of what can happen when you embrace the truth and face it head on. An abuser's most lethal weapon is the silence of their victims, and today we are breaking that silence with disclosure, exposure, and heart-led truth. Mack is an incredible advocate for other survivors, experiencers, and whistleblowers, and I know all of you listening will be here today offering him the same love and support he is always the first to offer to you. Mack's story is incredibly important as it begs us to look closer into phenomena that often gets written off as coincidence, imagination, or conspiracy, and also shows us how these fascinating encounters can also be tormenting, traumatizing, and even isolating for the individuals who experience them. Our hope with this episode today is to help many of you gain a greater understanding of phenomena that may be newer to you in your learning journey, and to also let those of you on the other side of the screen who have had or are having similar experiences to know that you aren't alone. I ask all of you to please put away whatever you're doing and give my courageous warrior of a friend your full attention as he shares his full testimony for the very first time. Before I finish introducing today's guest, I wanted to give just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you'd like to be on the show, share any information privately with me, or send me a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be written in a Substack article, you can email me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. I've also partnered with a couple of my favorite brands to get you guys discount codes on some of my personal favorite products, including Rife Technology frequency machines and blockers, and CZTL's high-quality methylene blue. All the links and codes for these amazing products, as well as the rest of my links, are in the show notes, and I'd love your support across all platforms. My YouTube channel was recently terminated, and I am being forced to pivot and use other streaming platforms to get this information out to the public and disclosure community, and your support would mean the world to me on platforms like Rumble and X, where I am currently streaming. You guys, thank you all for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, experiencer, and educator disclosures. So, you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, survivor and thriver, phenomena exposer, past life regressionist, astral war warrior, voice for the voiceless, anti child abuse and survivor advocate, walking miracle, and someone I'm honored and blessed to call my new friend, the one, the only, Mack, aka Parsi X. Mack, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Emma. Really appreciate it.
It's an
Really,
honor to
really
have you. I watched
like,
part of your testimony on another podcast that you did. I'm so amazed that more and more people are stepping up to share these really difficult times in your life. And I knew your story would be really important to people who have gone through similar things. And your fearlessness to talk about them just absolutely inspires me. So I know that we're going to talk about some hard things today. And I also know that there's people on the other side of the screen whose lives are going to be made better and they're not going to feel alone anymore because of what you're sharing with us today. So I'll let you start at these events in your childhood, and we can sort of reverse engineer your life and share about the beautiful place that you are today, inspiring people.
thank you so much, Emma. Where do I start? The moniker I chose, Parsi X, is because I am Parsi, so I belong to a minority of people from Persia called the Parsis that immigrated to India 3,000 years ago to avoid persecution by the Muslims. They said convert or die, so my ancestors had the wisdom to leave. And I'm part of a minority. There's only about 50,000 of us left in the world. We follow a religion called Zoroastrianism, which is probably the oldest religion, but it's not really well known, and it originated in Persia. So I grew up in Mumbai, India. My dad was a merchant navy captain. Mom's a housewife, and so me and my twin brother raising hell for our mom. You know, she said two is more than enough. So my experience with the phenomenon started age 11. I remember the day, 12th April 1991. It was 9:15 p.m. and I'll get to why I know the date and the time thanks to my mom. Um, so we lived in a five-story apartment building. We were on the third floor, and we lived in a place called the Parsi colony. So it's like an open colony of buildings with playgrounds. Um, and there's a Parsi fire temple right next to my house. So this is where we go and pray. So my parents were religious. They weren't, fanatics. They were religious. I was never religious. I never got into the whole religious side of things. Wasn't really interested in prayer or any of that sort of stuff. I still felt a connection, but it wasn't something that I resonated with. So I'm 11 years old. I'm sitting in my room, and the way that our apartment is configured is it's imagine a straight line, and on the side of the straight line is a wraparound balcony, which makes up the rest of the apartment. So about 9:15 p.m., I feel this deep hum in my body, and I hear this weird whoa 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 sound outside, and I'm like, "What is this sound?" When you're 11 years old, your head's in like girls and playing with your He-Man toys or listening to your Alice in Chains, and that was our first exposure to the Western world because MTV turned up around that time. So I'm thinking, what is this really weird humming? And I'm drawn out to the balcony of my room. So I go outside and I look outside my balcony, and I'm completely shocked. Like I don't know what I'm seeing because I have no points of reference. And it looks like a sort of a American football shaped size or donut or an egg shaped size craft. And it was, I would assume, 10 stories high. So the building opposite me was about 7 stories high, and it was slightly higher than the 7 stories. So I would estimate it about 10 stories, and it was hovering up there. And this thing's hovering up there, and all of a sudden, what looks like a yellow window opens up in the middle of this craft. And all I can, the reason why I know the craft is egg shaped is because I can see the lights around the perimeter just going around clockwise and anti-clockwise as a form of communication. This window opens up, and the weirdest thing happens. And every time I speak about this, I feel really, really crazy seeing it, is a three-fingered hand comes out, looks like the Star Trek sign, which I've done, and it's jet black and it starts waving. So when it's waving, I'm doing the same thing because when something or someone waves at you, you wave back at it. So I started waving back at this thing, and I'm thinking, how come I'm seeing this thing? What is this thing? And because we recently had MTV and we may have heard of UFOs and aliens, I said maybe this is something like a UFO. Didn't really think anything of it. So this craft from my line of sight moves to my right. So I'm like, hey, if it's moving so slowly, how come no one else is seeing it? I might run out on the wraparound balcony and catch it out there. So when I run out on the wraparound balcony, what really shocks me is not me looking at the craft, which is still in midair, but my twin brother is at the edge of the balcony with his hand up in the air, frozen, waving at this thing. So I'm like, you, what do you see? And he's like, yeah, don't you see that thing? It's waving. So there's two of us standing side by side, waving at whatever this thing was in the craft. And I had a guy called Olaf Bruckner illustrate those for me, which I'll get into in a bit. So we're seeing this thing pulsating, vibrating through our body. We're seeing this being, and it's like time stood still. This whole thing would have probably lasted 10 minutes, but it actually felt like time froze. And it then just floated off into the clouds. So me and my brother look at each other and say, what the hell did we just see? So we run to our mom and we're like, Mom, we saw a UFO. So my mom's like, 11-year-old boys with an imagination. So this is why I always credit her and her wisdom. She said, you need to go in separate rooms while your minds are fresh. This is 1991. There's no Facebook. There's no digital cameras. There's no phones. Draw down what you saw. So I go in one room, my brother goes in one room, and we haven't discussed anything with each other. We just saw what we saw. We go into our rooms and we're excited. We both, she's given us coloring pens. We start drawing. And I haven't seen his drawing. He hasn't seen mine. So I bring my drawing to my mom. She looks at it. She's like, okay. She sees it. Then my brother brings his drawing. And that's when I knew we had seen something, because she's looking at both the drawings and I could see the look of shock in her face. And then she says, you definitely saw something. So yeah, so that's the diagram there. The top one is me and the bottom one is my brother's. So I'm right-handed and he's left-handed. And I drew mine. So the way that we saw it was exactly like my brother drew it, in the sense that it was a jet black sky and there were all these lights around the craft. And see, even the timing and the date, we'd never discussed this. We just knew it was 9:15 p.m. because that's when we came inside the house and we saw the clock. So mom said, just put the time and date. And because we're twin brothers, we did it exactly that way. We put it on the right side of the page. And you can see how the craft has lights around the perimeter, and on the edges of the craft, there's these lights. And the craziest thing is that the detail of that hand that's in the middle of the craft, from that window or portal that's just there waving at us. So that was a very, very shocking experience for him and I. And
How did
after
that how did that impact both of you? Did you both have a similar reaction of either like fascination or awe or complete terror? What was it
uh,
like seeing this
it
thing?
was, yeah, it was more shock than anything else, and awe as well, because you're like, what is this thing? We had no points of reference for what we're seeing. But it was important for us to, let our mom know that this thing really happened. And, it was her validation that really helped us through that. And then after this experience, I started experiencing what we call orbs. So I would be eating my dinner about 7:30 p.m. and I would be telepathically drawn out on the balcony, the wraparound balcony, which is just, imagine a straight line. So I'd be able to walk the whole length of the balcony. And that's what I would do it, from I think 11, I think it was, yeah, roughly about 11. So this was about for 3 or 4 months after the incident. So I'd be walking and I would see what looked like two stars on the horizon that would manifest, but they were bright and golden. And the weird thing was, when I was walking on the balcony and I wasn't sure why I was walking on the balcony, and I would look to my left and I'm like, are these stars moving? What's going on? So then I had this relationship with these orbs. They would just move with me and I would walk. And then one day I decided I'm going to face these things. I'm going to look at them. And in my mind's eye, I told the one on the right, I said, if you can hear me, move right. And it moves to the right. So then I look at the one on the left and I said, if you can hear me, move to the left. So it moves to the left. And then in my mind's eye, I didn't say anything. I visualized them crossing each other, and they crossed each other. And that was extremely scary. Now I have that on camera now because we have, the ability to film things when we see them. So that really freaked me out. When I had that experience, I was like, this is something really, really, I don't know if it's demonic or something. That was my point of reference. I'm like, I'm not going to engage with these things anymore. And then after that was the only time I've seen a live owl, because the owls and the phenomenon are very intrinsically related, even in my case. So in our religion, in our culture, the owl is a harbinger for death and infertility. So my mom always said, if you hear a owl hooting at night, never look it in the eye, because it will affect your energetic fields and your fertility and all that sort of stuff. And the owl was right outside our room, and I could see it perched on the wraparound balcony, massive brown owl, and I could see it in the night. And she's like, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." And when someone says "don't look," what do? You look. So I opened up our curtains and I'm staring at this thing, and it's hooting away like crazy. And I was like, "Wow, this thing is just majestic." And I never thought about it for 30 plus years. So that was 11. I'm 45, 44. So then after that experience, I had no more experiences with the phenomenon that I thought of. Life goes on. We moved to New Zealand. Nothing really happened in New Zealand that I know of, except I remember going through sleep paralysis at times. And yeah, so that's my testimony from my mom. This is her writing UFO paintings done by my twin sons. She's redacted their names. Saw a UFO at 9:15 on the balcony. They rushed to the kitchen where I was, and an excited tone started to tell me to come and have a look at something like a UFO they had seen in the sky. And she says, of course, it's too late, and the UFO went as fast as it came. I thought these little 11-year-olds were pulling my legs, but they were so convincing in their excitement and detail of what they saw. I told them to paint a picture, date and time it. I put them in different rooms when they did these paintings. The paintings are not the same, but one can see the similarities, especially when they explain that the hand-like thing that waved from the middle and the flashing lights. And she ends with, "You can be the judge." So now, as 11-year-old kids with no exposure to the Western world, how do you explain two people seeing the same thing, drawing the same thing, unless we were dreaming it? But it was real as day. Yeah, so that was the first experience with the phenomenon. And then my life started taking a really bizarre turn. Just a lot of bad luck through school, a lot of bullying through school and high school, getting beat up every day. Even in New Zealand, just faced a lot of racism. I mean, that was back in the early 90s, so people didn't really have tolerance for other cultures, and they would see someone like me and like, where did this guy come from? So yeah, so I went through a lot of, me and my twin brother both went through a lot of tough times at school and high school, but we still persevered. I stood up to bullies. And then I started getting these sleep paralyses that were happening, where I would open my eyes and I would see tall beings with wispy hair and big black eyes crouched down, looking at me, and I would be freaking out, saying, "What the hell is this thing?" And I would close my eyes and start praying. And then we moved from New Zealand to Queensland, Australia, to the Gold Coast in 1999, and I started at Griffith University. So I started my hotel management degree there.
Can I ask you real quick, did your brother experience after that, was he also experiencing the orbs and some of the phenomena that you did, or did that stop for him?
It stopped for him, but the story will get wilder and crazier as we go along. So then when we moved to the Gold Coast, we were renting a place first, and then my parents bought a house. The house was rented by a gentleman that was a rabbi with his wife and his baby. And the reason why I remember that is my mom told me, I need to go get the keys from them because they're moving out that day. So I need to get the keys of the house. We moved into the house. Maybe a few months later, me and my twin. So this is maybe early, I would say 99, 2000. So we were never separated. We're always sleeping in the same room. So I'm on the left side, he's on the right side. We have a little desk in the middle of the room. I wake up in the middle of the night about 1 a.m. and the physical sensation that I get around my heart is like a crushing sensation. Like it was almost like I was in a depressed state because I was surrounded by so many negative people, just dealing with the trauma of school. And I always felt like this depressive state, and I'm like, why am I feeling this way? So then I wake up, and all of a sudden, at the edge of my bed, I see three golden outlines. And the golden outlines are a man with sideburns, with a rabbi's hat, with the wife standing next to him, holding a baby in 4K detail. And I'm like, what am I seeing? The physical sensation that I got was almost like if you're on public transport and someone's right up in your face, you're like, give me some space. That's how I always describe it. So I closed my eyes and I said, can you please go? Like, you're in my space and I'm feeling really, really scared. I don't know what's happening. So I closed my eyes. I started praying our prayers in our Western language. And I wasn't very religious. Didn't really believe in God, but I still prayed. But they never budged. They were still there at the end of the bed. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Who are these people? And then I kind of realized by that age, by 20, that these might be spirits and they may have come back to the house that they were living in. This was my speculation. So the next day I wake up and I tell my mom, Mom, remember what happened to us as kids now? I just saw the spirits of these people and they were just standing at the end of my bed. So then I asked my brother and I say, hey, did you see anything? And he didn't want to tell me anything for 3 days. He kept his mouth shut and kept pestering him. Come on, tell me, what did you see? What did you see? And then his version of the story is even more crazier. So he says he opened his eyes, and I'm like, what time did you open your eyes? And he says 1 a.m., exactly the time I woke up. And he turned his head to look towards me, and he says that he perceived a giant winged creature, like a giant bat, with red eyes, crouched down on my chest, which is like the classic. If you look at illustrations of sleep paralysis, you'll see like a demonic creature sitting on you. So I felt like this was a kind of an entity attachment that I had that always kept me in that depressive state where I felt that pain here. And he said that when he looked at this being, it recognized that he was looking at the being. It looked at him extremely angry, spread its wings like a bat, and then flew off eventually. And I said, did you see anything else? And he goes, no, I couldn't see anything else. But I think he may have seen the spirits as well. So then that experience, I was thinking to myself, is that, and I'm speculating here again, because I don't know, I was thinking that the spirits were there sort of as guardians against whatever this thing was. And they were waiting there to make sure this thing left my chest. Now, this is the part of the story that I'm discussing for the first time because I have never said this out loudly. This is the abuse that I went through. So when I was at university, I made friends with the guy. Like when you're young and you don't really have much relationships with your father, you're always seeking a father figure. And so I was 19 and he was 23, and basically he just kind of came into my life by accident saying, what, I need help with a university assignment. Can you help me? So I gave him my assignment, bleeding heart that I am, and he downright copied the assignment. And I guess the university found out and they failed both of us. But I was so stupid and vulnerable. In my defense, I said, yeah, okay, I accept responsibility because he stole my assignment. So I failed this course, $3,000 down the drain, and I had to do it all over again because I didn't defend myself. And I say, I don't know this guy, but I just said, it's done. I didn't fight for myself. So then he said, oh, like, what are you doing? Come over to my house. Like, I live with my wife. And we got really close, as friends, me, him, and his wife. And I never really thought anything of it. But um, every time I would say, I have a girlfriend or I want to do this in my life, he would say, no, that's not good for you. This person's not good for you. You shouldn't do it this way. Trying to push my life in a certain narrative. And then I guess, so that was when I was 19. And then, so I knew him for 5 years. And for 5 years, I felt like he was waiting, watching as predators do, as cheetahs do in the jungle, waiting for the right moment to strike a vulnerable person. So he saw that I had a failed relationship with a girlfriend and I was extremely vulnerable. And I had just started the relationship with my wife. Just we started talking. She was overseas, and we started talking. And this had happened just before my wife decided to come see me for the first time. So she was based in Canada. I was in Australia, and I was just frustrated with life. Like I was like, I'm sick of having long distance relationships. I want, I'm young. I want to have fun. So I recall that he may have done this before as well, but this is the memory I have of that night, and it's extremely traumatic for me to even say this. But and I feel ashamed because I was 23. I'm like, let's go clubbing. I might get lucky. Let's go. I was feeling, I wanted to get laid, basically. And that's so horrible to say. My wife's gonna kill me. But when you're young, you just want to have fun and you want to forget everything. And then um, I was saying, let's go clubbing. You can drop me off because I knew he was married with his wife, so I'm not going to take him along with me. And he just said, okay, yeah, yeah, sure, we'll go. So like, let's go home. So he picked me up after work one night, and it's like, oh, let's go home. We'll have a few drinks, and then we'll go out. So I'm sitting there with him and his wife, and he gives me a glass of orange juice. I'm like, why are you giving me orange juice? And he's like, I'll just drink it because it's good for you. I thought we were gonna have a glass of whiskey or something. So I had the orange juice, and after I had the orange juice, something just happened to me. Like my every cell in my body just woke up. Like I was buzzing with excitement. I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, buzzing. Come on, man, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's party. So he tells his wife, yeah, oh yeah, we're going out for a drive. We'll be back in a bit. So he says, "Oh, you want to have a party, do you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, come on, man, let's have a party." He's like, "Yeah, I've got something for you. You're gonna love it. You never tried it before. You've always spoken about being open." I was like, "Okay," and I was confused. I'm like, "What the hell's he going on about?" And he goes, "Oh, I've organized, for us to have fun in a hotel." And he's like, and I'm like, "Which hotel?" And he goes, "Why don't we go to the one you work at?" So I'm like, "Okay." So he ended up getting a room at the hotel. And by then, the effect of the drug was in full force. So it was speed, and speed lowers your inhibitions. So I had no idea what was going on. And it makes you feel like you can do anything. So he um, he took me up to the room, like, and I'm like, I'm confused. What are we doing here? There's nobody here. I thought you said you had friends coming over. We're gonna have a good time. Um, And then he touched me on my crotch, and I was a little shocked. I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And then he started funneling me down there, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, we're gonna have fun. I'm gonna show you a good time." And then he pulled my pants down, and he said, "Go sit down there." So he made me sit down, and then he went down on me while he was on the bed for 3 or 4 hours. And I was in a state of mind that I had no idea what was going on. And then he made me do the same to him. He he then asked me, he says, "Do you want to go further? Like, do you want to, do you want to enter me?" And that's when something that was protecting me said to me, "Something's going on, something's not right." And I said, "No, I'm not doing this." And he said, "Well, I can enter you." And I'm like, "No, this has to stop here." So for 3 hours, he had done whatever he wanted to do. Um, and After that, my life was shattered. I told my mom about this the next day. And rather than getting some kind of support from my mom, she said, uh, "Oh, there'll be a huge scandal in the community. You can't tell anyone." She said those words, and uh, I buried it, And then a few days later, he met me in the car, and he's like, "Oh, are you angry with me?" And I was like, for 3 days after he did that, he drugged me. The drug was in my system for 3 days. I'd actually overdosed on this drug. After the incident, I drove all the way to Brisbane without thinking. I was just in shock. So I was driving without realizing. I drove for an hour and a half, and then I drove back home. I worked out for 3 hours, just trying to get rid of the frustration. And I went back to work after 3 days. And then 3 days later, my colleague said, "What's wrong with you? Your eyes, the whites of your eyes look so red. You look like Dracula." And I was like, "Yeah, I've been up for 3 days, but there was nothing I could tell anyone." And then so he's like, "Oh yeah, come meet me afterwards." And then we sat in the car, and then all of a sudden he just grabbed my crotch, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, didn't you enjoy it?" And I'm like, "Enjoy what?" And he's like, "Oh, the other night." And I'm like, "No, that I've known you for 5 years, and all of a sudden this happens. It's the biggest betrayal." So then I went home and I told my mom, and my mom's like, "Oh yeah, don't tell anyone. There'll be a scandal." And by that time, I wasn't even on speaking terms with my father, so I couldn't say anything to him. And then my wife, who's my wife now, showed up, and I can't believe that I actually took her to his house for dinner. And during dinner, I never said anything. I was about to throw him off the balcony. I was so angry. But then he has the audacity to say, "Oh, are you angry at me?" And I'm like, "Anger is not even the emotion I have right now. Um, you know, you're not only betraying me, but you're betraying your wife. I mean, she hadn't done anything." But then he threatened me and he goes, "Oh, if you say anything about this incident, I'll kill your family." And at that time, my family knew him, my brother knew him. His name is Sam, and he works on the Gold Coast. "I'm about to expose you for the demon that you are, for what you did." And there's his photograph right there. You can show the other photograph as well. He works in a tax business with his wife. So that's him infiltrating my family with my brother on the right and my friend on the left. And God knows how many people he's done this to. But you're a demon and your days are done. You're exposed. And I hope you get everything that's coming to you. It's been 20 years that I kept this in. I should have gone to the police, but there's statutes of limitations. And you can threaten me all you want, but here you are in all your glory. And I hope you get everything that's coming to you.
You're fucking badass. You are such a badass for sharing this. This stuff is so hard to tell, and that's an abuser's best weapon is silence. They will go to such lengths. That's what's so difficult about these stories. 5 years of grooming you, of subtle control over your life, who you can see, who you can't, putting these, like, unconscious suggestions, saying things to, demean you in a sense and to create vulnerability with you, and then to attack, like you said, when you are at this low point in your life, trying to get to a better place, trying to overcome, you finally meet somebody that, is deserving of you and, that's not going to give you hardships in a relationship. And, right at that time, he comes and swoops in for prey. And what a betrayal to his wife, too. The fact that somebody can not only hurt you, like you said, but to hurt other people around him, and then to know that he sort of beat you down so much that he was probably very confident that you'd never tell anybody.
I kept this in for 20 years and I was so ashamed of myself. I lost my self worth. I lost my faith in God. I lost my faith in my family. I stopped speaking with them because I didn't have the support. I told my wife she only understands a certain amount of what I'm going through, and she says, along with this trauma and dealing with the phenomenon, it's taken a huge toll on us, on me. Um, I've had psychiatric treatment. I was suicidal for the longest time because you lack yourself, you lose your self-worth. Who are you? When this thing happens, you question everything. You question your purpose. You question your sexuality. Am I gay? I have nothing against gay people. I love everyone. Everyone deserves the right to live their lives. But when you do these things and you hurt people, um, there's no place in hell for people like this. So I kept this in myself since I was 23. I'm 44 now. I can hopefully finally move on and heal myself from this. But through the years, I've basically kept it in. Um, Only recently, with the phenomenon entering my life, again, I've been able to heal from this slightly. So I've been doing a lot of meditations, Joe Dispenza's self-healing meditations. And there was one meditation where he says you become no one in nowhere, in no time, as nothing. It's pure consciousness. So when you take out the I from the suffering, you take out the suffering. That's the epiphany that I received. So when I decided to separate my human self and focus on being pure consciousness, I was able to start the healing process from from this experience.
How did that incident affect your life over these years? You mentioned a couple ways. I don't think people
Oh,
realize the extent of abuse. It's not just that day or those years that it happens. It's a lifetime that you deal with it, and it can show up in so many different ways.
shattered my self-worth, my self-esteem, self-love. Um, my libido died. I had no interest in having any relationships. Um, Even it was difficult with my wife at first. It's the worst thing to happen to have, and people have had worse things happen. But the thing is, when it happens to you, it's like it's a violation. But one thing that I've realized is with that experience and with the experience of the bullying growing up and with the phenomenon being negative and positive, it's the positive part of the phenomenon that taught me that you, as in you, as in the NHI or humans, there's good and bad. And you said this in the start where it affects your body, it affects your mind, and it affects your spirit and soul. But I'm here to tell you that it can affect the body and the mind. They can corrupt the body and the mind, but they cannot corrupt the soul. Neither the NHI, neither the humans. That's why the NHI are obsessed with the soul. And it is a battle, it is a war for the soul. And I'm happy to move on from this part of the conversation if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing I wanted to ask regarding that, did you have support eventually as I know you said that your wife, she was as supportive as she could be. I know that there's still sort of that, disconnect maybe since it wasn't her experience. And then I also wanted to ask, for men who are struggling to talk about abuse, I think you might be a really good person to offer some advice for that if they're containing that and internalizing it and really scared to, let it go and heal from it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had any support from anyone, but then I realized I'm wearing this shirt. People will have different opinions on Tony Robbins, but one day I woke up, um, I guess before I moved to Canada, so this is just after the abuse experience, that nobody can help you but yourself. At the end of the day, people will hear you, they'll empathize with you, but if you want change, you have to unleash that fire within. As cliched as that sounds, is that you have to work on yourself. Um, and that's exactly what I did. I just worked on being the best person I can be for others. Um, my circle now is very small. When I was in my 20s, I was more interested in being popular, material, very vain. But now in my 40s, I'm like, I'd rather just hug a tree than hug a human. So for people, for men that are suffering, it's if you can find someone that you can speak to, even other men, you know, they don't have to be family or friends. Sometimes it's easier to talk to strangers. And I've never said my entire story out ever, even to my wife in that graphic detail. And I don't know what the ramifications would be of going this public. But this is probably the most raw that I've been. But I need this. We need to be able to expose people that do things and not wait. I waited 20 years, so there may be statutes of limitations when it comes to taking legal action, but don't wait, because it's not so much for them, it's more for you. It's more for your healing, and you need to know as a person your self-worth. You know, oftentimes we lose that self-worth, but other people can see it in us, and I see that in other people. I have that gift. I can see, you know, a person such as yourself that does this, that exposes people. You may have not been through this, but you put so much out of yourself, and it's probably not going to be easy to get attacked from every side, but you're still staying the course. And that's what you need to do as a person, is just stay the course. Believe in yourself. And even if you feel every day that you don't have hope, if there's even a little spark in your soul that says you need to do something about this, just do it, because it'll help you in the end. I'm not doing this for anyone but me, just to be able to be free of this burden. And if me speaking up, people can see this and maybe think, okay, you know what? I've been through something. It may not be as bad as this, or it could be worse than this. I need to acknowledge it. I need to speak up about it. That's the only way you can heal, is to be able to speak up about these things.
Something really powerful happens when we put words to what happened to us and how it affected us inside. It's so painful to just bury things, and it's so easy to do. It's really uncomfortable in our society today to talk about hardships, but at the end of the day, you realize that's really what heals us all, when we come together and we take off the masks that we wear at work and in society online, and we're just ourselves and we just share our very real experiences. We find out how not alone we are. It can feel so lonely because everybody else is talking about all the best things in their life, and it can feel like, gosh, I'm the only one going through this. And it's like so relieving, and it's like a breath of fresh air for people to just hear, oh my gosh, somebody else is having a hard time. Somebody else doesn't have a perfect life. I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one experiencing this. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you. What a horrific thing for somebody to do to somebody else who was so trusting and such a good friend and such a great person for those 5 years, like you were. To just take advantage is just heinous. But you're handing the shame back where it goes, and that guilt, and you're taking it off, and we just gave it back to him. So I commend you for sharing that, and I know it's going to be such a big help for other men and other survivors on the other side of the screen to feel their own courage and to say, gosh, I went through that, or I went through something similar, and I'm not alone. So just thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And look, there's this victim mentality out there, victim shaming. Oh, this person went through this. We're not victims. We're victims, because we walked through that fire. I walked through that fire of my life, and now I'm on the other side. Yeah. So we're not victims. We're victors.
Amen.
Moving on. Yeah. So then I moved to Canada for 10 years. Nothing really happened. 2000, I would say I was in Canada from 2006 to 2014, almost 10 years in Canada. And then
And
we
that was
decided to
your
come.
wife was there, right? So
That was
you
my wife. Yeah, yeah. So nothing really happened. I mean, that I know of. I mean, I was vaguely interested in UFOs and aliens, but when you're building a life, you don't think of those things. You push your abuse and everything, your trauma down. And I was focused on building this life with my wife. And then we came back to Australia. Now, when we came back to Australia, we lived in Queensland with my parents for a few years, which wasn't very healthy for us. So we decided to move to Melbourne, which is where I'm living now for the last 6 or 7 years. And life was again difficult, trying to deal with the trauma, and coming back here and having those memories that this person is in another state. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was working in hospitality. So I was a hotel manager, 20 years of experience. And then one day, COVID hit and they said there's no work. So I sat at home for a year and a half. And while I sat at home, my wife worked from home. And I put on a lot of weight. I put on about 150 kilos, which is about 300 pounds. So sitting at home, lying to my wife that I'm going grocery shopping every day, but I'd be going to McDonald's and eating 2 combos. And just like that, you know, just trying to internalize all my trauma. I was eating my trauma away. Um, and I blew up to the size of Santa Claus. I had family and friends say, "Oh, can you come and be Santa Claus for Christmas time?" And people, they would all laugh, and I would be like, "That's really hurtful." But then I would be like, "Look, I can only see myself through my eyes, so I don't see myself as that big." But then when I look at the photographs, I'm like, "Holy shit, I've put on a ton of weight." So I decided to go for a thing called bariatric surgery, weight loss surgery, and that was in 2020, 2022. So 2020 was when I think my awakening started, like a lot of people, because you're home and you're thinking, you know, you start living in gratitude. You have a roof over your head. And, you know, people are dying. Like I had family in India dying from COVID because they didn't have enough infrastructure for healthcare. My aunt passed away with her husband in a week of each other. They were only in their 60s, and she's part of my story of the phenomenon as well, which I'll get into. So then COVID was a time where I think a lot of people had time to sit down from that crazy hustle and bustle of life and really reflect on themselves, what they wanted. That's why they call it the Great Awakening. So that's when I started feeling that there's more to life than just, you know, 9 to 5 work, you know, paying your bills. There's got to be more to life. I got another job. I started working, put everything on the back burner. But then I was really unhealthy. And I said, okay, I need to do something about my weight. My knees are hurting. Went for this bariatric surgery, and that's when everything changed. So as I started losing the physical weight off my body, I started shedding the spiritual weight, and I started getting these physical symptoms. So the first physical symptom was a pressure right here in the forehead, and I was thinking, gosh, it's not a headache, but it's like a real pressure around the third eye. And I would close my eyes and I would see this purple light just emanating from the center here. So I joined an online forum called Project Avalon Forum, belonging to Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy. They went their separate ways. And on that forum, I started speaking to people saying, look, I'm experiencing this. And the second thing I started experiencing was scratching my forehead one day, looking at my hand. I'm like, what the hell am I seeing? And I can see a golden aura around my fingers. And I remembered, hey, that's like the same golden um, aura that I saw around the spirits. And I'm like, am I perceiving my aura? And it was very, very subtle, very faint. And I would feel like this energy in my hands. So I didn't think anything of it. So what pushed me to find out what was going on was that weekend, I was sitting like I am, watching TV, curtains down. My right hand starts getting really, really warm, starts getting hot. And I look at my hand and I start rubbing my eyes. I'm like, the hell is this? I can see streams of orange light coming from my hand going towards the TV. I would close my hands and they would disappear. I'd open my hands and they would head out to the TV. This is what I could perceive, light orange light coming out of my hands. And I got really scared. I'm like, holy shit, what the hell's happening to me? So I went on the forum and I'm like, pressure in this third eye region. I can see my auric fields, and now I can actually see energies from my hands. The fourth symptom I felt was when I'm around people, I would start feeling pain in my gut, like I was getting indigestion. It was almost like a barometer with people that are insincere, evil, malevolent, that didn't have the best interest for yourself. And I found that out by pure accident. So I was around some people that came to my house. And when I was around them, I would feel this way. And then when I would walk away from them, go in the park, I wouldn't feel that. So I said, is it only them? And then I tried that at work, and it happened at work. So it was almost like my body giving me an alarm that this person you have to be careful for, the pain in the solar plexus chakra. So then I went on that forum and I said, these are my symptoms. And then someone said, you're going through what's called a Kundalini awakening or spiritual awakening. And I was like, all right. Started doing research and I'm like, yep, people go through this. And that's when I said, okay, through synchronicities, I found out, you know, why don't I do one of these regression sessions? So I did a past life regression with a lady here in Melbourne. I just picked up a random name and I went to see her. And that's when everything went crazy. So when I went for that regression session, it's a QHHT past life regression. And at that time, it's important for people to know that when it comes to the species, I'd heard of the reptilians once, twice through David Icke. I never really gave it much thought, and I knew the Greys were basically the archetype of the beings that are out there. So as soon as I go for this regression session, it's a 5-hour session. My hands, and they've never stopped vibrating since that day. They vibrate, and I feel the energy emanating from them. It's like pulsating through my hands right now as I speak. So it started, and I was looking at the regression therapist, and her face physically changed. And I said, "Why is your face changing?" And she goes, "It's not my physical face. You're seeing my energy body." And that happens with a few people. And she'd only worked with maybe a few experiencers before this. So get into the regression, and she says, "Where are you right now?" So I can see my soul on a planet that has purple skies, and I see a crystalline pyramid. And all I am is a golden ball of light. I'm going through this pyramid as a golden ball of light, and other golden balls of light are leaving the pyramid. And when I reach the bottom of the pyramid, I look outwards to the purple sky, and a word forms, Lyra. Beyond that word is two elongated eyes that form. They look like gray eyes, but they're extremely elongated, and they're not black. They're pink and purple, like when you have oil on water, the pink and purple swirls. That's what it looks like. And then this feminine, almost gray alien being with hair came, very feminine, and she said, "I'm your mother. You were born in the Lyran system." I'm like, okay, I don't know what to make of this. I've never heard any of this before. Then the memory flips, and I feel my hands burning. My eyes are closed. I open my eyes in my mind's eye, and I see my hands, and I'm looking at them. They're human, and when I flip them over, they turn green and scaly with claws. And I start hyperventilating, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" Then I see a wooden door with two flames on the side, and this is a dream that I always used to have as a child, a nightmare, and I would never go through that wooden door. This time the wooden door is there, and I'm looking at my reptilian hands, and the hand pushes the door open. And that's the most traumatic part of the regression, is when I push the door open, I see a reptilian feeding session. So there's reptilians sitting, around table or whatever, and they're feeding on life forms, including humans and children. And I go, and this is the hardest part, is I go and I sit down, and I grab a young humanoid looking being, and I start eating its guts like a shark that would eat a human, just going at it like crazy in graphic detail. What I remembered next was a session of feedings that were happening. So just these are the beings. They're perceived as malevolent to us because they're feeding on lower life forms. But this is how we are with animals on this planet. We eat animals, we don't know how they feel. So now this particular reptilian being named itself. He said, "I'm Rakk, Rakkah, from the Alpha Draconis system." When my regression therapist asked who this was, my voice lowered, got growly, and I said, "I'm from Draconis. This is my name." Then the memory shifts to me standing on my craft as a reptilian being, looking out at the stars with my bloodied claw hand against the wall of the craft, looking outwards at the stars. And that's when I realized that as a reptilian being, I'm starting to develop a soul. Reptilians don't have souls. And I started developing a soul. I started feeling for the beings that I was eating, that I was consuming. And it's like that cliche, you are what you eat. So the next memory I have is me lying down on a table with my reptilian feet. I can see the claws, and I can see this all in detail. And I'm being pushed on a trolley into a sort of a very sterile room with purple lights. And I feel pressure in my temples. And the therapist says, "Look around." And all I can see is dark. And then I tilt my head back, and I see a short gray alien with its hands on my temples like this. And I'm I'm feeling this physically. My body starts convulsing, and she's like, "Look around," and I'm like, oh, "I've got so much pain here. I don't know what's going on, and I feel pain in my chest." And then she says, "Look beyond your feet." So when I look beyond my feet, the vision clears, and I see what I describe as two tall grays standing, holding down my legs, 8 foot tall, 8, 9 foot tall grays. In the middle, next to the crotch, was a massive reptilian, draconian reptilian, even taller, black and green, in a black cape, and laughing with a malevolent laugh at whatever this procedure was. And my body starts shaking and starts convulsing. And in that moment, I look behind him and I see what is an even taller being that resembles what's called a mantis being. And this mantis being has got its claws on like a computer or machine and presses a button. When it presses this button, the body starts convulsing, and I can see this golden thing coming out of my chest and being floated over and put into a glass jar. So this was a soul scalping session. And what I gleaned from this was that these reptilians don't have souls. This reptilian started developing soul, and this is a disease for them. So in order to get rid of that disease, they ripped out that soul. They isolated that soul. Now, people are saying, well, how can you be a Lyran and then how can you be a reptilian? How did you reincarnate as a reptilian? I didn't reincarnate as a reptilian. I realized that when the reptilian fed on this Lyran being that I was, it absorbed its soul and it absorbed its memories. So I was then living that reptilian life. I was seeing through their eyes what they are. And they found out that that soul was stuck in that reptilian body, so they soul scalped it. They took it out. Okay. Now they take out the soul and they dispose of the reptilian body that I was. So that was the end of that reptilian life. So that's all I remember of that regression. But throughout that regression, I was telling my therapist that we as reptilians, this is our agenda to infiltrate society. Um, and we seed our message through your movies and TV. And it mentioned a movie called Jupiter Ascending, which shows here's the agenda, the adrenochroming of children, of people, the off-world elite humans that traffic us, Earth as a farm. All of this was coming out in my regression as the being saying this to the regression therapist. And then I told the therapist, if you utter a word to anyone about this, we will kill you. I'm saying this to her, we will kill you. And she's freaking out. So we move away from the reptilian life and then we start speaking to my higher self. And this is, I won't forget the end of the regression. I was really traumatized by what I was seeing. I was crying. And we asked my higher self, so is there really good and evil in the world? And my higher self said, there is no good, there is no evil, there is or is not, because good and evil are human constructs. So when I was left to ponder on that statement, I was thinking to myself, there is no good, there is no evil, there only is or is not, which means we all have a choice to go in either direction. We choose what to do, we choose how to act, we choose how to be. We can kill, murder, rape, we can love, cherish, move on. So then I asked myself, why was I then reincarnated as a human? Human life is the most traumatic, you know. You face rejection, you face bullying, you face sexual abuse. And then the higher self again said, there is no good, there is no evil. There is or there is not. You have a choice. And then I said, look, I choose the light. I refuse the reptilian past life. This is who I am. I'm a force for good. And then when that regression ended, all of a sudden, the therapist was spooked out. She said, I said, can we do another one? Can we do another QHHD regression? And a nice way of saying GTFO, she said, yeah, we'll do one in a year. So she said, look, after, there's a lot of stuff in this regression. You have to listen to it when you go back home. And you're going to face some physical symptoms after the regression. And surely I did. I went home that day. I almost felt like I was going to vomit. My eyes turned red. It was like I had an allergic reaction to whatever was coming out. And then the draconians started infiltrating my mind. So I would hear their voices in my head. I would see the eyes of the reptilian being when I closed my eyes. In broad, like it was like a 4K version of the two eyes. And I sent those diagrams to you. I don't know if you have them. So this one day I'm sitting down, my wife's making pancakes, and all of a sudden I hear this voice in my head, and I thought I was going crazy. The voice says Draconis. It says it in my left ear. Remember who you are. And I'm like, remember who I am? And I was like, who the hell are you talking to? And then all of a sudden, I hear, remember who you are. Remember who you are. My hand starts shaking. And I told my wife, get me a notepad. So I get the notepad and I'm compelled to draw the whole reptilian eye. When I close my eyes, I see the reptilian eye. And I drew this big reptilian eye, which I think you should have, that one there, in so much detail. And I don't know any of this stuff, you know. I never cared for any of this stuff. Then I flipped the page over, and you can go back to that diagram. And when I flipped the page over, I started drawing one of the eyes on the right hand side. I drew the eye, and then my hand moved over to the left, drew the left eye, started drawing the face, started drawing the teeth, and then my hand moved to the top and started drawing the crown with the horns. And then my hand went crazy drawing the little um, the little spikes, like the detail on the forehead. And this is still a work in progress. I'm afraid to go back to it to actually finish the whole face. But this is me as a rock, the reptilian. So I was looking at myself in the mirror, drawing this. And I threw after I did this, I did another page where I did automatic writing. So I wrote reptilian handwriting. And I drew another big eye. And I just threw it, like I said, through the pad. I'm like, I don't need this crap in my life yet. So I drew that as well. So I would get the image of this, the words Lyra as they showed up, this eye in the triangle, and the triangles below signify the constellation of Lyra. So yeah, so these are the Lyran eyes as I saw them. So very elongated and pink and purple swirls going through them. So after this experience, like I would just constantly hear the voices and I would get those memories of that reptilian life. There was a day I was walking in the park one day, and this really weird thing happened. Yeah, so that's me as Rock the Reptilian on the starship with his arm up, looking out at the stars. And I'm sorry, my drawings are pretty crappy. Um, so I'm in the park and I'm walking back towards home, and a voice tells me look down, and I look down, and all I see is pieces of bark everywhere. But when I look down, there is a piece of bark that looks like a reptilian eye, like an actual reptilian eye. And I pick it up and I have it in my hand and I've got it with me at home. And I'm like, why are you fucking with me like this? What is the purpose of this? And I'm looking at this eye and it says, you know, remember who you are. You're one of us. And I'm like, no, I'm not one of you. I never was one of you. I reject that. And then I was struggling. That's when I came on X. I started speaking to Fringe and some other people that, you know what, I've had these experiences. Should I speak about them? And she's like, okay, you should speak about them as much as you're comfortable with. And then synchronicity started, and I built my profile as Parsi X, you know, the anonymous Persian Parsi experiencer that's coming out slowly. And I put up my illustrations of the craft. A few days later, my brother calls me and he goes, "You'll never guess what happened." And I'm like, "What happened?" And he's like, "I got off the bus and I was told telepathically to look up at the sky." He pulls out his phone and he takes 3 photographs, the ones with the purple sky that I've sent you in one of the. So he says, "Do you see something?" And I was like, when I look at these photographs, I'm like, I see these white specks. But then he zooms in on one photograph, and lo and behold, it is the egg-shaped craft that we saw as children. And the message that they gave him, yeah, so that's one of the craft. There's another photograph with the craft on the right side. So you'll see them with the purple skies. So there's one photograph where there's multiple craft in the sky, elongated craft. But then what shocked me, what made me drop my phone was he said, "Look at this picture." And I'm like, "I'm not seeing anything." And then he zoomed in on the right hand side. And when you zoom in on that, that is not a reflection. That is an egg shaped craft looking at him right there. And this craft told him, "We are always with you. We're always watching over you and your brother." So this was really shocking evidence that I got. And if you zoom in on this, you'll see multiple craft up in the sky right there. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 on the right. And these are not just issues with the camera. This was just instantaneous. And this is the most compelling photograph of the craft right there. So this was his experience right when I was having my Kundalini awakening, right after my QHHT regression. So it was all coming together. So after this, I started getting on my Facebook feed, Rewired by Joe Dispenza, self-healing. People heal from cancer. I was like, oh, what the hell? Who is this idiot, Joe Dispenza? I'm like, pardon my French. Sorry, Mr. Dispenza. So I was getting really annoyed. And then all of a sudden, I found his meditation. And I'm like, wow, what is this meditation? I downloaded it online and I did the meditation outside on my balcony. And I live close to Melbourne Airport. Now, it's very important to remember the flight path is not over my apartment. I can see it go from left to right, helicopters and planes. Now, this is when things went batshit. This was, I would say, probably around November 2023. So I started doing these meditations outside, and I could see Orion's belt, the constellation outside, and I was drawn to Orion's belt. Now I would start seeing flashes that would come below Orion's belt. And I'm like, what the hell am I seeing? Why is this a satellite? Why is it that every time I look up, I'm so drawn and I see a flash, like someone's telling me they're there? Then all of a sudden, a few days later, I see these white orbs fly by, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the same thing that happened to me as a child. And where I made the mistake was telepathically asking them. I said, do I have permission to film you? And when I would pull out my phone, they would disappear. So as soon as I said, do I have permission to film you? Bang, they started showing up. So then the first week they showed up, I got videos of them flying diagonally across the screen. And I got the photograph of that orange orb. So this orb looks like it's a drone going past my apartment. But when I take a photograph of it and I zoom in, you can see the face of a gray alien. You can see the eyes in the mouth looking straight at me. Yeah, so if you zoom, when I zoomed in and I just cleaned up the picture, I'm like, what the hell is this thing looking back at me? And there's like the eyes in the face. And I was like, what the hell's going on? That's just nuts. So this thing goes past me, and I start feeling symptoms of PTSD, of anxiety. Now the next day it ramps up. In the morning, I wake up and I live next to an airport, so I don't think when helicopters are flying by because they're just going past me. Nothing's going over my apartment. Working from home, and all I hear is zoom, 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 zoom. Then I come out and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I come out on my balcony and there's a jet black helicopter hovering over my apartment, so close to me that I take a picture of it. And I'm like,
Crazy.
where the hell did this, what the hell is this thing? And it sounded like there was no engine. It was just a whirring of the blades. And this is so close to my apartment, right above my apartment. I'm like, I've never seen a black helicopter before in my life, but it shows up just after the orbs show up. So I'm speculating that they know, that we know, that we're being watched, and I'm being watched. So then after this happened, the more I would meditate, the more orbs I would see. And I would see different kind of orbs. I would see the blue tic tac shape. If you just go through all the photographs, I'll explain them to you. Yeah, so that's the orange orb there. So that's a golden orb that was flying through the sky that I saw. Now this one is interesting. This one is a TR3B triangular craft that I couldn't see with my naked eye. So right after the helicopters flew by a few weeks later, again, this was a Sunday, I hear helicopters hovering over my apartment. So I go outside and I film a 4-second video of a helicopter going over my apartment. And I take a few still shots. And in the still shots, you can see the helicopter going. And right above the helicopter is a little black triangle that I zoomed in on, was this thing here. Now, I couldn't see this black triangle with my naked eye. I could only see it in photograph form. So I zoomed in and I showed my wife and I was like, holy shit, look at this. So she's put the 4-second video up on the TV and she went frame by frame. And in 4 seconds, you can see the helicopter fly off, and diagonally, you can see this craft go white and basically literally go white and zoom off in 4 seconds. And we had to break it down frame by frame. So how fast are these things? You can't see them with the naked eye. After this incident happened, I was left shaking. I was sitting on my sofa. I was shaking. I was like, either they put some direct energy weapon or they put some waves. And again, it's speculation. I was having an anxiety attack. And my wife said, don't go out on the balcony, just stay in the house. And all I could hear was helicopter after helicopter hovering like crazy. But I have all this on camera. I have the 4-second video. And when I break it down, you can see a water droplet coming down sometimes. People say, oh, that's a water droplet. But I'm like, did you get the TR3B that flies off? And you can see the triangle craft clear as day. So, so then this is another experience. Again, when I'm out meditating, I just end up getting all these weird shapes. Like you'll see a shape like this. There's also a blue tic tac that I got flying by in the sky. There's a blue orb that flew by. These are all untouched. These are all photos I've taken on my iPhone. This is a TR3B that I got in Auckland, New Zealand when I was there on vacation. So they follow me around. And it's literally the shape of a triangle, as you can see, with flames around it. And this was just randomly in one picture. This is another weird shaped orb or craft. I don't know what to make of it. It looks like a red orb flying by when you take photographs. It looks like that. This is another one. I got off the bus one day, crossing the road. And anytime I have these experiences, my head goes into a meditative state. I started feeling dizzy and I looked up and I'm in the middle of the road, crossing the road, and there's this bright blue orb flying past at 6:30 p.m. and I'm like, holy shit. I pulled out my phone, I started filming, and then people have been saying they shot down those craft in Alaska, the horseshoe shaped craft in Alaska, the drone shoot downs. This looks like that. If you flip it to the side, it looks like a horseshoe shape. That's crazy, isn't it? I don't know what to make of these. Every one of them is a different shape. And this one is a blue orb that is a zoomed in version of me and my wife taking a selfie. And there's this blue orb that comes right next to my thumb. And when you zoom in on it, you can see a face of a being in the blue orb, which is crazy. So this almost feels like the Lyran guides that I have. So that's the tic tac. So this was streaking through the sky. This could be a balloon, but it was so fast. All I did was I pulled out my phone while I was meditating and I saw this thing streaking past the sky. So I take a video and it just looks like a white line going through the sky, but I always take these still shots and there it is, clear as day. You can see the appendages on the bottom. You can see the perfect shape of the tic tac. I don't know what to make of it.
That's incredible. That one, it has like such a defined shape to it, where the other ones sort of fade off into like a light kind of like an aura around it. This one's
Yeah.
like really firm. And I mean, we know from videos that tic tac shape is something that other people have witnessed too and have corroborating, very similar footage of.
Yeah. And I've got more than the tic tac and the TR3B, like all the different shapes that you see. Um, and then if you go on to the next ones, so I
Mm.
had this one experience with my aunt, spirit orb. Um, if you can go to my YouTube page, I can show it to you.
Yes. Okay. Let's bring that up.
So this is part of the phenomenon. So all of these experiences leave me with a lot of anxiety and PTSD. So I'll keep talking while you're doing this. So one day, my mom had two sisters. One passed away from COVID that I was very close to. So the other aunt said her husband wasn't well in emergency. So I started praying for him in the park. And when I started praying for him in the park, I had this overwhelming sensation of love. And I see this green orb fly by. Keep going down, and you see all these different shape craft that I'm seeing. Keep going down. And the one there, the my aunt's spirit orb, the green one. So that's what it looked like when you take a photograph of it. When you click on it, it just looks like a massive green orb flying through the sky diagonally. And I was overwhelmed with love when I saw this because I was praying for my uncle. I said, can you please look after him?
It's down just a little bit.
Or maybe this is in the video, but this is what it looked like. So when I took a still shot of this apparition, this is what it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if you go back, I'll show you some other ones as well. There's one day that I woke up at 1 in the morning and I thought I heard a helicopter. So I got out of bed and there is a red orb outside my apartment towards, if you scroll down, it'll be on the right. Yep, to the right, see orb over Melbourne. So that's a circular red orb. So I heard a helicopter at 1 a.m. I woke up and all I do is I go out on my balcony and at 1 in the morning, this thing is hovering up in the sky. and you can hear the crickets and the birds. It's right there. I don't know what it's doing at 1 in the morning. But this left me with so much PTSD when you actually watch the actual video. Um, Ever since then, I've been waking up every day at 3, 4, between 3 and 4 in the morning after this experience.
Whoa. And I see there's like some other little lights up on top too that were kind of dancing
Yeah,
around.
and look, this is like I think it's either 1 in the morning or 1:30 in the morning, and it's just there, right as rain. Now I'll show you some other ones there as well. So I did a regression with Mary Rodwell to find out what these orbs were, right? I was going crazy looking at these orbs. Oh, sorry, go down 1 second. Go down, go down. That one is a random orb that flew past my apartment in the middle of the night, 7 or 8 p.m., just past my balcony. And I'm
Oh,
like, what the hell is this thing? It's not an airplane, it's not a drone, and it's just fluctuating through the air. And
it's
it
so
just flies
bright.
past. Yeah. And then if you look at the thumbnail, that's what it looks like. So that's what it looks like as a thumbnail. Now, if you go over to the left, is my aunt's spirit. Yeah, that's the one. That's the spirit orb video. And I'm actually shaking, saying thank you. Thank you for showing up.
Thank
And
you. Thank you so much. Wow.
this was just bright. It just manifested as this green orb, and then it just flies away. So I see all different colored phenomena.
Oh my,
So to get answers for these orbs, I did this regression with Mary Rodwell, which is up there, the hour-and-a-half one, if you ever get a chance to watch it. So in this regression with Mary Rodwell, before we get to the regression, when I started meditating, I started seeing this owl being that you see there, that one there. So this is the being that showed up in my meditation, basically, and told me, you need to follow owls, right? So the day after I saw this being in my meditation, I drew the owl being and I went to an antique store and I saw owls for 3 hours in the antique store, little figurines, like owl synchronicities, and I've taken pictures of those. So after that, I reached out to people and they said, "Oh, don't you know owls and the phenomenon are linked?" And I was like, "Wow." Then I find out about Chris Bledsoe. Chris Bledsoe speaks about the owls and the phenomenon and how they're linked. But my life did a whole 360. Part of my healing process was when I did this regression with Mary Rodwell. So in this regression with Mary Rodwell, I was in a field with this mantis being in a purple cape, and I am looking up at Orion's belt in a field. And I asked the mantis being, "Why are we here?" And the mantis being does this to me, does a shush to me, and then puts his other hand up at Orion's belt. When he points at Orion's belt, one of those golden orbs comes down and morphs into this triangular shaped craft. From this triangular shaped craft come out these three beings with the body of men, with the faces of owls, and this golden armor. And they came out and they said, "Come with me." So when I went with them up into the craft, they flew off the planet, and I'm like, "Where are we going to?" And they fly into what looks like the sun. So in my mind's eye, I asked AI to generate exactly what I saw, and it did it beautifully. So it takes us through this big orange circular thing. And I'm like, "Why are we flying through the sun?" And they said, "It's not the sun. We call it the all." And I'm like, "What do you mean by the all?" And they said, "The all is what you call in your English language God consciousness or God source. And we are all fractals of source." And that was a very profound experience for me because it's like they took me to be with God. And I said, "Well, why are we here?" And they said, "You are a fractal of source. You are one of us." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Who are you?" I asked them. And they call themselves the guardians of souls or the keepers of souls. And I said, "Can you elaborate what that means?" And they go, "We are a species of beings. We are fighting a war in what you perceive to be or what you call to be the astral realm. And in the astral realm, we fight a war against the Greys and the reptilians and their hybridization agenda." And I'm like, "That's so confusing. Can you explain that to me?" And they said that the Greys and reptilians can't live on this 3D construct of ours. It's very difficult for them to manifest in 3D form. So you always see them in plasmatic forms. In order for them to live here and infiltrate the society, they steal people's semen and eggs in the craft and they build hybrids. But think about it for a second. You can't just have an empty shell of a hybrid. You need a soul in there for the hybrid to then function. So what these reptilians also do is they abduct people and they take fractals of their soul or the entire soul. They can rip the soul out, put it into these hybrids. So this is an astral war. And they said this is a literal battle for the soul. And they said, this is what we do. We stop them from doing these things in the astral realm, taking people's souls. And I'm like, what's my purpose? And they go, well, you're one of us. You're a Lyran, you're a Carrion hybrid. Carrion is the avians. And they said, you have lived through a life as them, so you know their life, but you're not one of them. You're one of us. And we're the ones watching over you and protecting you from them. And it's your message to spread that this is happening. The hybridization programs are happening. And people need to be aware of this. This is a reality. And so after this, like for me, it's orbs every day, whether it's in my house or whether it's outside. And recently what's happened is I woke up one morning and I found scratches on my back, right behind my shoulder blade, going down like this. And I told my wife, I said, "Are you pissed off at me or something?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And the way the scratches were right behind my shoulder blade where I could not physically reach, but they're like this going down. And I have a photograph of them. So I thought nothing of it, but I said, let's document this, right? This is like potentially the reptilian side harassing me. And that very night, I was going to speak to another experiencer. So I'm going to tell my wife, good night. I'm going out for a walk. I reach out my hand and a scratch manifests on my arm in real time right here. And I was like, where the hell did this scratch just happen? And I have a photograph of it as well. And it literally manifested on my hand right before I'm having the meeting with this experiencer. During this chat with the experiencer outside in the park, I got flashes in the sky, which I filmed on my phone, and I put it up on my YouTube. I've got so many stories. You could spend hours with me. So after this happened, the phenomenon has taken another evolution, so to speak. Well, I was thinking, how do I know about this past life as a Lyran or this avian being? So this lady called Jalila Star came on Dr. Michael Sala's channel and spoke of when the universe was created, these beings, they formed as these Lyrans, these feline beings formed. Then they also formed the Carrions, which are the avian beings, who then genetically engineered the reptilians, who then fought with the humans and the Lyrans. So there was a great war. And I was in tears when I saw that, because I'm like, this is all in my head. It's all coming together by this lady who was given this information by this white lion being. Now here's where it gets even crazier. I feel sometimes that there are orbs in my house. So I do a thing called orb throwing. I'll feel the energy in my hand. So I'll wave my hand up, and I have videos of this, and you'll see the orbs fly by. So I did that in my bedroom, in a darkened bedroom. And I don't think I've sent this to you, but if you look up if you go on my X channel and just look at my profile and look at my highlighted post, I'll show this to you. So I took a photograph of an orb, and I zoomed in on the orb. And when I zoomed in on the orb, it was the face of a feline being, the nose of the lion, the cheekbones. So if you click on highlights there, so this one was just a few days ago. The orb was flying by my apartment. Again, I was just, if you click on the video, you'll just see a white light flying by. Pure accident. I went out on the balcony. This thing's flying by for 2 minutes. I'm like, what the hell is this thing? And I take photographs with my phone. And this is right outside my balcony. You can see the city right below. So if you go on the photographs, you'll see a face on the right-hand side, the white lion. So this was a feline being with the whole white hair and everything. And you can see the eyes and the nose. I don't know what to make of it. But then a few days ago, the orb that I caught in my room is the actual feline face. So if you scroll, I'm trying to see if I can find it. Just keep going down. So this is my Journey to Truth podcast. This is the one. This is amazing. So if you click on the bottom left-hand one, So that's the orb. So it's just a black and white picture, and I asked someone to enhance it for me, and you can see that if you zoom in, you can see the cheekbones, the nose, the face. This is a face in an orb in my room. And then if you look at the other photographs, the touch-ups of this, so someone just drew, like this is a perceptive drawing from Olaf Rockner, who's an artist, and I asked him, tell me what you see. And if you keep going, yeah, keep going left. See that? Do you see the eyes, the cheekbones, the lion's mouth? I don't know what to make of it. So when this being showed up, they told me they were the Lyrans, and it all happened at the same time when I saw that interview with Jalila Star about the Lyrans being, you know, the first race of beings from creator source, and how it's all part of a grand experiment. On Lyra, they had the Lyran beings that were very benevolent. They didn't know anything about malevolence until the reptilians showed up. And that's exactly what I say in my regression. And now I'm trying to find a way to contact this lady because she literally said my entire story. So this is where we are right now with my experiences. I'm going through this almost on a daily basis, you know, seeing these orbs and these crafts and trying to build up a network of people where we can speak about this without shame.
And you're doing a beautiful job of that. And it's really heroic how you've decided to use your voice publicly. You could have easily just kept it maybe between you and your wife, or even just you and a therapist or somebody who's helping you, you know, but you've taken a really heroic step to help people with your story and to hopefully get some puzzle pieces for you too. As much as I want to validate other people, I also hope somebody else on the other side of the screen maybe could contribute something they've went through that might be a puzzle piece that you guys can both connect. You know, so all of these testimonies really validate, they corroborate. There's so many layers and things that we have in common between these different experiences, abuse, phenomena. There's all different layers that corroborate. And so I ask anybody, you know, if you guys are experiencing something similar, go follow Mack on Twitter. His Twitter's super active. That's probably the best place to connect with you there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I have my YouTube channel. I put up my videos, not for fame or fortune, but just put them up because I'm experiencing this and I want to be transparent with people and say, look, holy shit, I just experienced this. I'll put it up on, you know, on X and YouTube. Have a look. And my DMs are always open for support. People need support as abuse survivors or dealing with the trauma of the phenomenon. I'm here for people. So thank you once again for allowing me to speak. Letting off a burden of 20 plus years. So bless you.
Bless you. Thank you for choosing this space to share. It's going to impact a lot of people. It's going to have a snowball effect that, you know, you might not even know the brevity of. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of this and for sharing some things, like I said, that might not be quite as common to talk about. I've certainly learned a lot from your story and about orbs and these different, you know, energetic bodies in a sense, and just really this astral spiritual realm that exists around us that many of us are just so oblivious to or turned off to. You know, hopefully there's other people that feel less alone, and then other people that can come connect with you and, you know, help corroborate some of this, put some puzzle pieces together. So, was there anything else that you wanted to go over before we wrap up for today?
No, I'll stop with a saying from Jim Rohn, who's a motivational speaker. And when I was a child, I saw him in Auckland, New Zealand. And when I was 14, again, I didn't really think of the impact his words would have now when I'm 44. But I'm so blessed that I got to see him in person. And I'll leave with this: it takes all of us to make each of us. Each of us cannot do this on our own. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate you and your platform and your bravery, and keep being a warrior for the light. Thank you. Bless you, Emma.
And with that, you guys, thank you guys so much for listening. God bless you, and we will see you next time.